Elegance is the key word in any description of Melbourne, Victoria's capital city, situated on the benign north apex of Port Phillip Bay on the banks of the Yarra River. It's a tranquil, gracious city, famous for its friendliness and charm. Its wide tree-lined streets, its theatres offering a continuous feast of drama, ballet, opera and musicals, its art galleries, splendid hotels and restaurants, exclusive fashion shops and old-world buildings set in beautiful lawns make it a city to delight the stroller. Part of Melbourne's character must be, of course, attributed to its trams. And the trams are what we have come to see today. And looks like we're just in time. And the driver that we're going to meet in just a few moments, come down, John, is John Newland. Welcome, John. How are you?
Pleased to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. How long have you been driving trams for?
About 28 years.
28 years. Is it a boring job or do you find it absolutely fascinating?
I wouldn't say absolutely fascinating, but it's not a boring job either. It's a good job, I think, and it keeps you busy watching traffic and so forth, you know.
Let's say I wanted to be a tram driver. How would I go about it?
Well, you'd apply after 3 months conducting.
I'd have to be a conductor first, would I?
3 months, yes, conducting. Yeah. Then you apply to the board for driving, and they would send you to a selection committee, and they would put you through a few questionnaires. Then you'd go to a school, and they'd give you the basic how to drive a tram. Then you go back on the road with another driver for 96 hours, and go back to the school, pass an examination. And if you're successful, you'll be a driver.
In actual fact, it takes 96 hours to learn to drive
you've
a
got
tram.
it, plus the schooling.
Yeah. How many trams are there?
That's 600.
And
that's in Melbourne.
That's in Melbourne, yeah. And you've driven quite a few of those 600, I presume.
Oh, yes.
A little bit later on, we're going to have a look at the new prototype tram. There is a new, as I've just mentioned, a new prototype tram which is just being developed, which would seem to suggest that these trams are old. How old?
Oh, about 20 years.
20 years. How often are the trams taken out of service for maintenance?
Oh, every second day they're taken out for brake and washing and so forth. But every 8th day, I think they go full maintenance.
Are they reliable as far as trouble-free service is concerned?
No worries.
No worries.
On the mileage they do, they're fantastic, really.
Do you ever arrive in a situation where you're driving along and all of a sudden sort of something comes to a halt and you can't go any further?
In which way do you mean, the tram itself?
The tram, yeah.
Oh, very, very seldom. In my 28 years, I suppose I've had about 3 breakdowns in a tram, such as a fuse might blow in the compressor or something like that.
Oh, well, in 20 years, that's not bad going then, is it?
No, very level.
How many miles can a tram expect to travel in one average sort of a day?
Oh, around about 120.
120 miles, that's a lot of miles. How much do they weigh? Sort of, they look relatively solid.
Empty, they're 19 tonne.
19 tonne? This is possibly why people driving cars don't take on trams, perhaps.
That's right.
Yes, because a tram sort of has particular ways in which it goes, and if you're in the way, you get hit.
That's right. Well,
but of course, trams are relatively safe. They aren't really involved in a lot of accidents, and they're...
Not really. When you compare the mileage they do a day, well, I would say that the tram is very safe.
And as far as passengers are concerned, they are very protected too, aren't they?
That's right, yes.
Because sort of anything that bumps into a tram usually comes off second best, I presume.
That's correct, yeah.
Yeah. They run on electricity, of course, and we'll talk about the electricity afterwards. How many volts? You obviously don't plug them into 600.
600 from the overhead.
That's a lot more than a 240-volt light globe, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes. Now, Melbourne's getting the old trams, and the new trams are coming along. In just a moment, I'd like to have a look, if we could, at the new trams. But first of all, I'd like to talk about the passengers. How many do trams hold?
Well, there's 48 little holes seated.
Yeah.
And then we can put in over 100, really, standing, 120.
They call standing strap hanging, don't they?
If you can get hold of a strap, sometimes in the Melbourne trams get very overloaded for night time, you know, in the peak periods. But through normal daytime, you wouldn't have any more than about 20 people standing, you know. But mostly they're sitting. But only in the peak that they get packed up.
The people that join the tramways, do they mainly want to become drivers, or would they
The majority want it.
Because driving would be more interesting than conducting, wouldn't it?
I would think so, yes.
Because you have to remember prices and whatnot and all that sort of jazz, which would be
Well,
a
I
bit
think
difficult.
a conductor gets a little bit browned off with the public, and once you become a driver, you're away from the public, really. And it's, as you say, it's a more interesting job, driving. It's a more... Well, you've got to have your mind set more than conductor.
You don't get bored.
Oh, well, there is times that you get a little bit sick of it, I suppose, but I wouldn't say bored.
How many hours do you drive a week? You presumably work a 40-hour week.
We work 6 days a week at present with the overtime that we've got to do through the shortage of staff, you know. So, about an average of 48 hours a week.
48 hours a week on the road. I presume, too, to become a tram driver, you'd first of all have to have an ordinary driver's licence and know the rules of the road.
Yeah.
And you would recommend tram driving to anyone, would you?
Yes, if they like driving.
If they like driving.
Yeah, if they like driving any vehicle, I think a tram's as good as any to drive.
How do you think, I said that anyone who takes on a tram in a car would have to be stupid because they'd come off, well, I mean, if a tram weighs 19 tonnes and a car doesn't weigh quite that much, what sort of drivers are the people in Melbourne? Do they sort of get in the way of trams, or are they basically good drivers, do you think?
Well, I would say 50%. 50% drive are good drivers. The other 50, well, a lot of them are haphazard.
Are they? Golly.
Yeah.
The new prototype tram, we're going to have a look at that because it's the only one, isn't it, at the moment?
Right, yeah.
When are the others going to be brought into service?
Well, I'm only the driver. Well, I've heard that there could be another one next month.
Yeah.
And then from then on, we should be getting them fairly quickly.
Are you going to be driving one of the new ones?
Well, I hope so.
Are they easier to drive?
Yes.
Are they better to drive?
Better to drive, more comfortable in every way.
Are they more comfortable as far as the passengers are concerned?
Of course, yeah.
They are.
Right.
The passengers, are they basically friendly people, or do you have any trouble?
Would say 80% passengers are good.
Are good. Not that the driver has much to do with them anyway, does he?
Not really, no. The driver would only have about 10% that may come up and go crooked in, not stopping the last stop or something like that. But basically, I would say that the passengers are good.
Of course, you've got to keep a bit of an eye on the passengers too, don't you? You've got to make sure that you don't sort of pull off too soon.
Oh,
while
of
someone's on the
course.
step.
The conductor will give you the right way to go, but it's the driver's prerogative to watch his rear vision mirror there to make sure that everybody is on and off the tram.
Do you think the passengers are going to like the new trams better?
Oh, for sure.
Let's have a look at it, shall we?
Good. Yeah.
Well, this is certainly a bit different, isn't it?